I got to tell you that back in 1975, I had just come off of a phenomenal experience. I had been searching for my father from the time I was 8 years old, and I had dreams about him all the time. I had never seen this man, and he had been extremely cruel to everybody that he had ever met in his life. All references to him had been most unflattering. His life was an ignominious one in almost every way, and yet there was something inside of me. There was a vengeance, there was an anger, there was a pain, there was a suffering. There was something inside of me that wanted to talk to this man and find out, how do you abandon 3 children? How do you do that? And how do you leave a woman and never pay her any child support? And how do you beat somebody up and rape them and create a pregnancy that way? And how do you use alcohol to destroy yourself? And the endless stories that I had heard, sort of backhanded because it was too painful even for my mother to talk about. How do you do that? Where does that come from? And I wanted to know because somehow I thought maybe his leaving was courageous. Maybe he just couldn't stay and face it, and maybe he loved them so much that he had to leave. Who knows? If you don't know, you just wonder, don't you? And you just think about it, and I thought about it. My other 2 brothers couldn't have cared less about any of it. They were not interested at all. They didn't have any memory either. My oldest brother had some slight memory, but my next brother didn't. He was with me through the whole time. And so I must tell you this because it really is relevant. When your purpose starts to become commensurate with what you are doing, when your life each day is exactly the same as what you believe you are here for, suddenly, and it is suddenly, your purpose begins to own you and you get on such a fast track that nothing can stop you anyway, all right? And this purpose, whatever it may be related to anything in your life. Each one of us has it, and it is a magnificent purpose. And when you live it, it starts to own you. That's the only way I can say it. And this business about my father and the anguish and the pain and the suffering and the dreams and so on wouldn't go out of my life. And in 1975, I was in Columbus, Mississippi at a school, I think it's called the Mississippi State College for Women or something like that. I had gone to several colleges. I was working for the government. I was a professor at St. John's University in New York, and as a consultant, they asked me to go down to the schools in the South to see how integration was going, whether in fact, then I was supposed to go sort of unannounced and just sit in on classes and find out whether or not there was any integration, and then send a report back. That was my job, and they paid me by the day to do that. And I got to Columbus, Mississippi, and I did all the things I had to do, and I checked it out. I sent my report in, and I had heard that my father had died, but I hadn't had it confirmed, but that it had been in New Orleans, and that's the only thing that I had known. So I started calling. I called the infirmary, one of the infirmaries in New Orleans, to find out that information, and they said yes. Finally, after a lot of phone calls, I said yes, he died in, and they gave me the year, and I said, well, where is he buried? What happened? I mean, I want to see, was my name on the death certificate as one of his children? What they said, well, only records we have here because they're too old now. It had been about 15 years or so, he said. His body was shipped to Biloxi, Mississippi. Now, I was only 4 hours from Biloxi, and I looked on the map, and I said, I'm going to Biloxi, and I'm going to find out. Now, this story is, get ready, okay? I'm going to turn the lights out a little bit, because this will start making you wonder about what you're doing here, anywhere, what you're doing anyway. I decided to rent a car. All right, I had flown to this place. So I went and rented a car, and it was a 1974. It was a brand new car, Dodge Coronet Blue. And I looked at the odometer, and there was 0.8 tenths of a mile on this car. Now, what the hell did they do? Make it here? I mean, what is this new car doing in Columbus, Mississippi? I didn't understand that at all. And I just kind of made a mental note of it. And I reached down. I want to put my seatbelt on. Okay, so I reached to get the seatbelt. And in those days, they didn't have the shoulder harness things. They just had a belt that went across to your lap. So I reached in to get the seatbelt, and I couldn't get it out. It was encased in plastic. I literally had to take the seat out of the car to get at the seatbelt because I wasn't going to go. It's one of those things that I just won't get in a car and drive without a seatbelt. So I reached down in there, got the seat out in there, and I pull it out, all wrapped around, and there's a rubber band around it, and it's in plastic. So I took the rubber band off, and inside the wrapping is a little card, a little business card, and it says Candlelight Inn, Biloxi, Mississippi. Okay, there's no miles on this car. So I said, all right. I really at the moment didn't think anything of it. I really didn't. If you think you got shivers now, just wait. I'm going to take you to Shiverville tonight. And I put the card in my pocket, and I didn't think anymore, but got in a car, drove down to Biloxi, picked up this guy hitchhiking who was a migrant worker, drove him over to Jackson, Mississippi, and I think it was Jackson, and took a little side trip. And it was Friday afternoon, and it was 4:45 on Friday afternoon that I arrived at the outskirts of Biloxi, Mississippi. So I go to a standard gas station right on the outskirts of town. I went to the yellow pages, and I said, I'm going to call the 3 cemeteries here in Biloxi because there's only 3, and find out if Melvin Lyle Dyer is buried here. So I called the first one, no answer. Long time, no answer. I called the second one. Busy. Okay, so I called the third one, long time ringing, and finally the phone answers. I said, I'm calling. My name is Wayne Dyer, blah, blah, and I'm calling to find out if Melvin Lyle Dyer, he left, he said, I'll be back, and he went away for the longest time. He finally came back. He said, yes, my heart it was like the end of a journey, and it was a lifetime journey. I said, all right, now I got to get to, how do I get there? He says, oh yeah, it's very easy. He said, just look for the Candlelight Inn. He said, we are on the grounds of the Candlelight Inn. And I reached in my pocket just like this. And I said, you mean? He said, yes, that's it. Now that's a true story. And I went there and I stood on the grave. I found the place and I stood there and I talked. And I had like a dialogue with this man whom I had never met before, so whose picture I had never even seen. I had never even seen what he looked like. All right. And I had like this long dialogue. And what I did during that time was to forgive him for everything that he had done to my mother, to my brother, especially my oldest brother, who he had done a lot of horrible things to. And anything that he might have done, I didn't know about forgiveness or how important it was or whether I should do it or anything like that. I didn't know that. I just simply spent the time doing that. And it took about 2.5 hours. And tears were calming down. I can only tell the story now without crying because I've done it a few times. It wasn't long ago when I would tell this story and I would be a wreck. You'd have to carry me off. So this business about forgiveness now, I want to tell you that whatever you got going for you in your life in the way of animosity or bitterness or anguish or pain or whatever towards any other human being on our planet, whoever they are and what they've done, that the toxic reaction to that bitterness, it will never let go of you. That forgiveness is like the greatest motivator, if you will, in the world towards anyone or anything. Hanging on to anything painful or hurtful and so on, I personally believe you've got to let go of, not only do you have to let go of it, you don't have to make any phone calls, you don't have to let anybody else know that you're doing it. In your heart, you have to purify yourself in such a way that you just simply say, love is forgiving. And that's 2 words. And it's 1 word when it's 1 word. It's love is forgiving. All right? And that's what it is. You must forgive. And it's also forgiving.